What's going on YouTube? It is Repost back in another video. In today's video, I have another first round mock draft where, of course, trades are still available, but I'm switching things up again. New team trading up to number one. I know Giants still have control of the number one pick. We know it's going to be a quarterback, either Mendoza or Dante Moore. And the Giants don't need a quarterback. They have Jackson Dart, who has looked very good his rookie year. Definitely needs to start prohibiting himself and going to the ground a lot easier so he prohibits injury. Already has 2 concussions, been evaluated for concussion in 50% of his games. But yeah, we're going to have a new team moving up to number one here. And that team is going to be the. Where are they? I can't see them. Here, the Los Angeles Rams. They're going to be using 10 and 31 in this video to move up to number one. Obviously, it's going to probably take another first round pick and potentially a weapon that the New York Giants would want. But for this, it only matters about the first round picks. So we do have the Rams moving up to number one and going with Fernando Mendoza. I think that would be a great pick. I think he definitely fits a Sean McVay type offense where he can stand in the pocket, make any throw on the field with great accuracy. I think Dante Moore could do the exact same thing. But yeah, I feel like Fernando Mendoza is more of a Ram guy than a Dante Moore is, to be honest. I think he'd do very well in LA. Obviously, we don't know how much Matthew Stafford has left in his tank. So, they go quarterback to be set there for the future because you're still going to have a great roster after Matthew Stafford retires, and then you're just able to plug in Fernando Mendoza, who's able to sit for a year, gain experience at the very least if Stafford doesn't decide to retire after this year, potentially wins a Super Bowl, decides to go out on top. Don't know. He's playing at an MVP level, so I don't really anticipate him retiring, but I do definitely think the Rams could invest in a quarterback. I think Fernando Mendoza is a great piece to do that. Moving on to number two with the Raiders. And to be honest, I don't know if they'll make this pick, but I mean, I think Dante Moore is the second best or best quarterback in this class. I personally prefer him to Fernando Mendoza. I say that a lot. Um, but Fernando is slightly, I don't know. They're equal right now in my opinion. I think maybe I'm starting to give the slight edge to Mendoza, but I do really like Dante Moore. Can make any throw on the field, but for the Raiders here, maybe they just want Mendoza. Maybe they don't want a Dante Moore. And if they're here, sorry, I don't even know what's happening. But maybe they don't want a quarterback here at this spot if Fernando Mendoza is off the board at number one, which is why I had them trade up in the last draft. Um, so yeah, you can see the Raiders potentially move down if they don't want Dante Moore at quarterback, but I definitely think he's good enough to go top two. And I think he'd be a very decent fit with the Raiders there at number two. Um, so yeah, Raiders get a new quarterback to pair with Ashton Genty. Hopefully, are able to invest in the offensive line in this draft. That's why I think they have the potential to move down. Maybe they do a trade with like the Jets to get 5 and 18 for two, and then the Jets are able to get their quarterback. And then the Raiders just invest in the offensive line. I don't know how it's going to work out, but certainly something I could see. But in this mock draft, we have Dante Moore headed to Las Vegas. Here at number three with the Titans, you could go anywhere. I go Ruben Bain a lot, but I mean, yeah, it's really just a pick your poison. What do you want here for the Titans? They're not great in any position. They're not good in any position. It's just, you know, a depleted roster, I think, to say the least. But I think one of the most important things to pair alongside Jeffrey Simmons is an edge that can stop the run for um, all three downs. And I think Ruben Bain's the best edge in this class. Going to be able to be a pass rusher, but also a run defender for you. I don't know why they took his weight down. He's around, I want to say 265 ish. Um, but I guess there might be new measurements coming in or something. Let's see. Yeah, they have Kendrick Falks there. I don't know why they took Ruben Baines down, but yeah, Ruben Bain to the Titans at number three. I think that's a good fit. Moving on to the Browns here at number four, and I think this is a potential trade down spot too. People might call me crazy for that, but if a team wants to move up for a receiver, they have every single one on the board. maybe the Browns just decide to go receiver. I've done that for them in the last two drafts. I went Carnell Tate the first one and Casey Conception in the first one, and then I went Jordan Tyson in the last one. But maybe a team just really wants to move up, really want to get their wide receiver, um, and maybe you could see the Giants move around the board in this. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have them hold on to 31. Um, that's not the Giants. That's the Giants. I'm gonna have them move or hold on to 31. They have 33, so it's not that big of a difference. And I'm just gonna force this trade. So the Giants move from 1 to 10 back up to 4, and they're able to get their wide receiver that they want. And I think the perfect complement to Malik Neighbors in this offense is a Cardinal Tate, a guy that can line up in the slot if you want him to, but can also play the outside receiver. Played a lot more outside this year for Ohio State than he did last, but excelled in both roles. Really good wide receiver there. For the Giants, and I think they need someone because we don't know what the future of Darius Slayton's going to hold with him aging, as well as Wandale Robinson's future. I don't know how much longer he has on his contract. This might be his last year, but obviously has been quite good for them this year. Um, so yeah, I think they could use help at that wide receiver spot, give Jackson Dart another option to go to. And I think Cardinal Tate's the perfect answer for that. Moving on to number 5 with the New York Jets. You could go a lot of different areas. They could use help anywhere. But I think they could use a lot of help at that linebacker core, and I think Arvell Reese is perfect for that. Probably could argue Arvell Reese for pick number 4 to the Giants. Um, Obviously, they need someone opposite of Bobby Okereke. Nassau has not been good for them this year. Okereke has been mediocre, but they just haven't been that good as a whole. So you could definitely argue Arvell Reese there to play alongside Okereke if you want to for the Giants, excuse me. Um, but I think they're going to prioritize giving Jackson Dart a weapon um, to allow whoever the offensive coordinator is going to be next year to really open up that offense. Um, but the Jets, I think they could use linebacker. I believe it's an aging group, and they just need help everywhere along the defensive side of the ball. We just saw how easy the Jags were able to pick them apart in this last week. So I think a linebacker that can stop the run well, can play the edge if you really want him to, and be good in pass coverage is something that's of necessity. I don't think his grade's that bad against or in coverage, to be honest. Um, but yeah, really, really good linebacker, best in this class by far. And then I would say his teammate Sonny Styles is next. Yeah, that's what they have it too. And then probably CJ Allen afterward at that linebacker 3 spot. I do really like Torian York as well as Harold Perkins just as a potential project player, as well as Deontay Lawson. But I think the clear linebacker 1 is Arvell Reese, and I think with the amount that teams are starting to run the ball, it's going to be very important for teams to begin to have great linebackers. Um, Moving here to number 6 with the Cardinals, I really think this is a trade down spot. I think any team could come up here and do something. And I'm actually going to go with the Cowboys. I didn't even have it here, but Cowboys to move up to 6. I don't think that you need to use both their first round picks. Um, but I mean they don't really have much draft capital in this year. But we'll just do this. Um, Probably Cardinals get something else next year, maybe in next year's first. But I don't think the Cowboys would have to give up 23 and 14 to move up to 6. Um, but I think the Cowboys do this to strengthen um, their defensive line, get an edge rusher that can play all 3 downs. And that is going to be Kendrick Falk for me. So, the Commanders kind of get um, unlucky there because I do think Kendrick Falk is the perfect fit for the Commanders. But, Cowboys are able to jump them, get the 3 down edge rusher that they desperately need to pair with Kenny Clark, Quentin Williams, and then Ezra Raku, who's going to get to the quarterback while Kendrick Falk does all the other dirty work in the run game. Moving on to number 7 with the New Orleans Saints, I think you could use another outside receiver. You could use a D lineman. And, I had the D lineman fall pretty far in the last draft. I'm not going to do that here. Peter Woods is going to be the pick for me. I think someone that, started his college career out great, had a little bit of a down year this year, but able to stop the run, able to pressure the quarterback, has a lot of potential as a D lineman with his athleticism, and I think he's going to translate to the NFL very well. Um, so, maybe teams like the Saints, who are in a rebuild, bank on that potential, pair him with his former Clemson teammate in Brian Brzee on the interior defensive line, which I think they need a lot of help in. Moving on to number 8 with the Commanders, this could be a blessing in disguise for them that the Cowboys decided to take Kendrick Falk because I think they look elsewhere and I think they get probably the best player in this class in Caleb Downs to really bolster that secondary group that needs a lot of help. Sanders still hasn't been particularly great this year. I think you could use help on the boundaries. I think you could use help as a safety unit. I think Caleb Downs is going to be a box safety, which maybe means he replaces Mikey Sanders still. I don't know if they'll do that entirely, but he can play over the top, very instinctive safety if you want him to. He can also roll down into the box and play linebacker for you if you want to. So, jack of all trades in Caleb Downs for the defense that needs a lot of versatility for it to start to flow. I think would be perfect for Dan Quinn to work with. And I think as the Commanders get healthy next year, that team's going to be great. And I think Caleb Downs, if he does go there, is going to be a big piece in doing so. Moving on, though, to the um, Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like I do this pick a lot, and that is David Bailey. So I'm going to hold off on this draft from doing that. I think you could go a lot of different areas. You have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you don't need wide receiver. I don't know about Chase Brown. Maybe you want to go Jeremiah Love. I think the offensive line's pretty awful. I think the entire defense is pretty bad. Um, and I think you could use some help at corner. I think you could use some help in the linebacker department, safety department. I think Caleb Downs would be perfect for you if he was there. Um, but I think you need help across the entire defensive line to stop the run, get to the quarterback. That's why I like the idea of David Bailey because he does get to the quarterback at a very high rate. But if you're looking to stop the run, have an edge rusher that can play all three downs for you. I don't think David Bailey's going to do that at 250. Maybe he could if he bulks up a little bit, keeps his athleticism, maybe slightly decrease in athleticism. Need to see the arm length though. I think he's a true pass rusher. So for that, I'm gonna go T.J. Parker here. Keeping the same position but changing the player a little bit. I think T.J. Parker's one of the guys in this class that's going to be able to play all three downs, and I think teams are going to value that on their edges. So I think that's a really good pick for the Bengals. Different than their prototypical edge rusher that they usually go after. Um, in a guy that can just get to the quarterback like Trey Hendrickson, but I don't think he'll be there after this year. I think edge is going to be the biggest need for them in this draft, and I think they do address it. But maybe they change their approach, want to go for a guy that can play all three downs, and that's exactly what TJ Parker does. Moving on to number 10 with the Browns, I think this is probably best case scenario for them. Um, Move out of 4, and only one of the wide receivers goes off the board. You still are able to get Jordan Tyson to pair with Jerry Jeudy to give Shador another weapon. I think if you're not able to trade up to 1 or 2 and get one of these top quarterbacks, then you know Sellers is headed back to college. Sorsby is leaning towards going back to college. Maybe you go Ty Simpson in the second. Maybe you go him late first with that Jags 28th pick. Um, we'll see how he tests, how he does in the draft process. But you like Ty Simpson to have a little bit more arm strength and also just a little bit of a better frame, but not too bad in the height department. But doesn't have the arm talent that you want in a quarterback, especially not uh, good enough to draft him top 10. I know I had him going up here, but I was just quarterback's such a valuable position. You don't really know where they're going to go, but just a really lackluster second half of the season for Ty Simpson. So I think they invest in Shador Sanders, who has not played bad. And I think that Jordan Tyson is a perfect option to give him on the jump balls while Judy becomes that route running guy. But Jordan Tyson's very good against man, very good at catching balls over the middle. You can line him up anywhere you want to, Excuse me. Good on the deep ball, good at catching contested passes. So yeah, just a really good wide receiver. Probably the most talented wide receiver in this class. Just injury history might have him fall down the board, but Browns take a shot here with him at number 10. Moving on to number 11, I'm gonna make this pick until there's a team like the Vikings that move ahead of the Chiefs. I think Jeremiah Love's the obvious pick for the Chiefs here at number 11. Um, yeah, just really need a running back, really need an explosive offensive unit back. We don't know when Patrick Mahomes is going to be back next season. Tore his ACL as well as I think his LCL um, that came out recently. Um, so yeah, don't know what the future of Mahomes is really going to be. But I think you need help in that run game desperately. They don't have a go-to back. Kareem Hunt's a free agent. Pacheco's a free agent. And then you're left with Brashard Smith, who hasn't really shown you that much this year. So I think you invest in a really good running back prospect, probably the second best in the last 2 years. I prefer him to Marion Hampton. Obviously not to Ginty, but I think Ginty was, just a blue chip prospect. But Jeremiah Love is as well. Um, I just don't think quite as good, but still a very, very good running back and probably going to be a star in the league once he gets there. So I think it's a no-brainer for the Chiefs at 11. Moving on to 12 with the Vikings. And y'all might call me crazy, but you could consider tackle here at number 12. They don't have healthy options, it seems like, ever. Christian Darrisaw hurt in this last game. Brian O'Neill gets hurt constantly. You don't know how much you're going to be able to rely on these guys moving forward. Um, Obviously, when they're healthy, it's one of the best tackle pairings in the league, but how often are they really healthy? That being said, I don't think they invest in tackle this early in the draft when they have such glaring needs on the defensive side of the ball. Um, and I think that, Jamon McCoy is probably the perfect pick for them, but maybe in this case they do value his injury history and decide to go with another corner who I think has been very good this year and years past, and it might be a little bit of a reach, but Avion Terrell I think can play that nickel that they need help in, can play the boundary if you want him to. I think you just try it out. He has very good tape. He has very good instincts on the ball. Plays a lot bigger than 5'11", and you need help across the entire defensive back room. Maybe you see Avion Terrell and think that guy can play nickel for us. Guy can play boundary for us potentially. Kind of like a Caleb Downs situation for the Washington Commanders. You see the versatility that Avion Terrell presents you with, and you decide to try that out and draft him this early in the draft. Yes, he probably ends up being a back half of the first round guy, but I'm just having fun here. It's a mock draft. It's, months away from the NFL draft. We haven't even got to the combine or any of the pre-draft process. It's just what are they putting on film, and I think Avion Terrell's film is great. Um, but moving on to number 13 with the Miami Dolphins, I don't remember if I decided to go Downs with them or Cardinal. I think I went Cardinal Tate, but I think a perfect pick for them is actually to go Makai Lemon here. Um, just a really, really good route runner. Um, really good in the slot, which I think they could use if they want to use Jalen Waddle on the outside and just let him bomb down the field. Kind of in that Tyreek Hill role because we know Tyreek Hill probably won't play another snap in the NFL. That injury is really tough to um, recover from. So I think that you could line up Makai Lemon in the slot and then let Jalen Waddle play on the outside, which he did in his first year in Miami. Um, let him be that down the field guy. While you can see here, Makai Lemon is your true slot receiver, which I think would help to have a security blanket there. Um, so yeah, I think a really good fit in Miami. Probably one of the best fits in this draft. Um, Makai Lemon, the Bolitnikoff winner from this year, heads to Miami. Moving on to number 14 with the Cardinals, who moved down from 6 to pick up 14 and then probably a future first or something like that from next year. Um, and with this pick, they're going to go right tackle. I do it a lot. I really like the Francis Mauigoa fit. I think he's a guy that can fill both of these positions. You could obviously go Spencer Fano if you want, who's been a right tackle at Utah. Um, you're not really looking for help on the left side of the offensive line. I think Paris Johnson's great there, but I think you're looking for help on the right side as well as the interior, which I think Francis Mauigoa could do a job at both. You could try him out at right tackle if it doesn't work there. I think he profiles better as a guard, and then you just move him to what he profiles better at. And if he works there, he works there. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Um, and then you may be able to just leave him at tackle. But yeah, I think a great fit, and I think the Cardinals would be happy to come out of this draft in the first round at least with a top tackle talent, top offensive line talent. I think probably the best tape in this class for an offensive lineman this year was Francis Mariano. We'll see how he holds up against A&M and Cassius Howell this weekend, um, because Cassius Howell does love rushing from the side that Mariano plays offensive line on, which is on the right hand side, obviously. Uh, but yeah, in an intriguing matchup, we'll see how he holds up against a true pass rusher. Cassius Howell not really a run defender though, so we'll see those two go head to head, see how they both hold up. Here at number 15 with the Ravens, I went defensive line with them last draft, and I'm doing the same, but I'm going a different player in Caleb Banks. I think Caleb Banks is my favorite D lineman in this interior defensive lineman in this class. I think my favorite D lineman altogether, including edge rushers, is probably Kendrick Falk, but Caleb Banks, dominant hands, really good interior force that can stop the run at a very high rate. Also pressure the quarterback decently for an interior defensive lineman. And I think the Ravens do just really need to go D line in this draft. I think that's the position of need for them. Matabike, again, sucks. Praying for him, but we don't know if he's ever going to play another snap in the NFL. So I think it's definitely something you have to consider if you're the Ravens to just um, find that defensive lineman at 15, and I think Caleb Banks would be available, and I think he's one of the best players in this class if he does stay healthy. Played a decent amount of games this year. It doesn't feel like he played 3 games. It doesn't feel like he played 3 games. Looked really good against Tennessee though, and I think I got him and Jordan Tyson's games mixed up. Doesn't feel like Jordan Tyson played a lot this year, but he played 9 games. Um, I thought it was the other way around. I thought Banks played 9 games. Jordan Tyson only played 3. Um, don't know why I got those mixed up. Completely different positions, completely different players, but I did. Sorry. But yeah, Caleb Banks really dominant force on the interior defensive line. Um, that injury history just doesn't really concern you. I don't think it was that bad of an injury, but Florida just wasn't really all that in it this year. But I thought looked great in this year. And even 2023 showed great flashes. As I believe he's a redshirt senior, so I believe that would be his redshirt sophomore year. Um, but anyways, moving on to number 16. If he's available at 16, I think you just pull the trigger. And I think you need a lot of help at this position, and I think that's edge rusher. Yeah, I think it's edge rusher. I was debating between Sonny Styles and David Bailey because I think Sonny Styles is a perfect fit in Carolina, and maybe Carolina decides to draft for fit. We don't know where they'll end up this season. Excuse me, um, but I do think they need help on the edge desperately. Nick Scorton hasn't been great. Tershawn Wharton has been hurt, I believe, and then Bob Brown, who they invested in the interior defensive line, hasn't been bad. Um, they just they just need consistent play off the edge, which I don't think they've gotten in a long time. So I think David Bailey is going to be one of those true pass rushers that really helps out the Panthers. Obviously, did not go with an edge rusher in the first round. Went Tyrone McMillan, which I thought was a great pick. I'm not really hating on Tyrone McMillan. I'm just saying um, I think the Panthers need help on that edge department, and I think David Bailey does that for them. So that's why he heads there. Moving on to number 17 with the Lions, I think this is probably the most straightforward pick of the draft. If you see Jermon McCoy there, I think he's just headed over to Detroit. Um, Probably one of the best picks in this class. Guy that can play the boundary corner. Look at the tape from last year. Probably one of the, if not the best corner in this class. I probably think the best corner in this class. I thought it'd just be fun to try out the Avion Terrell thing early in the draft. But yeah, Jamal McCoy, an excellent player. I think the Lions need a lot of help in a lot of different departments. Could go tackle, could go interior offensive line. But in this instance, Jamal McCoy has fallen down the board. Maybe that's due to his injury, but um, yeah, if he falls down to 17, I think the Lions will have no issues in just pulling the trigger and going Jamal McCoy. Here at 18 to the Jets, you could pair Sonny Styles with Arvell Reese if you want to. I'm not going to do that. I think you probably look to Um, you have a great offensive line. I think you probably look to the DBs after trading Sauce Gardner. And I think it's great that Mansour Delane's this far down the board because I do think he's a very good corner. Back to back corners go in this class with McCoy and Delane. Delane looked great this year, didn't really look great the last 2 years, his sophomore and junior year. Um, but, picks the ball off at a good rate. Your only concern is him getting beat on the deep ball, but I think Delane is a good enough cornerback with good enough technique and instincts for the ball that the Jets will be willing to go him with him in the first round to really bolster that defense that needs a lot of help with Arvell Reese and Mansour Delane headed there in the first round. Moving on to 19 with the Buccaneers, Sonny Styles is on the board. You need desperate help at linebacker, um, and I think that's a really good fit there. Um, I think he's someone that um, is going to be able to replace Levante David once he decides to retire, which we don't know when that will be. Um, but really good player in there in Sunny Styles. Instinctive, flows down to the ball at a really good rate. I believe played safety for them. Um, Maybe in this year or this year. If not, it was like a nickel safety kind of thing. And then maybe transition, or that's Lathan Ransom, and I'm just completely tweaking. But yeah, Sonny Styles is a great linebacker, really good frame, 6'5", 240. Um, but yeah, really, really, really good player. I think a great fit in Tampa to replace Levante David and play alongside him until then. Moving on to 20 with the Steelers. I think you could go a lot of different areas. You could look at the wide receivers. You could also potentially look at a trade down, and that's exactly what I am going to do. Broncos are moving up, and the Broncos are going to get. Did not go through. They just didn't want to give the Broncos their pick. Okay, sorry. Okay, there we go. Broncos up to number 20. And they go Kenyon Sadiq. I don't think Evan Ingram has given the prediction or production, excuse me, that you are looking for in your tight end at Denver. And I think Kenyon Sadiq is a perfect fit for that offense. Bringing all the Oregon guys together, apparently, with Troy Franklin, Kenyon Sadiq, Bo Nix. But yeah, really good tight end. One of the best tight end prospects in a long time. Really good athleticism, really good against the run, but also can route you up like a receiver. Um, I don't think the grades are as accurate as they should be. Um, I thought he looked great in the game against USC. I thought he looked great against Penn State. I don't know how they grade their tight ends, but you can see he found the end zone 8 times, had 500 receiving yards as a tight end in college, which kind of rare to have that much as a tight end. Not really utilized in college all that much, but he's basically a wide receiver at the tight end position that can also block for you. So I think it's a perfect fit for Denver, who need help on that offensive side of the ball. Moving on to 21 with the Eagles, I think you're pretty upset that McCoy and Delane were starting to fall down the board and they get picked before uh, they fall down to you because I think you could use help in the cornerback department. But um, I think you could use help on the interior offensive line. I think I did this in the last draft, but I'm going Ione there. I think a guy that has shown the best tape as a guard in this class probably. Um, and I think you really need help on that offensive line to, run block and really help Saquon Barkley find that gear that he was in the year that y'all won the Super Bowl because he's just been a shadow of himself this year. And I think if you're able to bolster that offensive line, give him, you know, the time to read the defense that he had in the 2024-25 season, then he'll be able to be back at his best, even if he's aging a little bit and his body starting to decline. I think he's still a top 5, top 3 running back in the league if you're just able to give him what he needs. And I think he's a key part in the Eagles' offense, obviously, but a key part to their success in winning is that run game because Jalen Hurts is a game manager that has legs. That's basically what he is. And I think if you really bolster that offensive line to give Saquon that time to read a defense, make a cut, and then explode, I think he'll be back to his best. And I think Ione does that for you. Moving on to number 22 with the Texans. I know it doesn't say it is a need, But Trent Brown's a free agent for them. Maybe they want to move Titus Howard back out to right tackle, but I really like Titus Howard at left guard this year. I don't think they need guard as bad as it says. I think Ed Ingram's been good too, but with Trent Brown potentially leaving, I think Spencer Farnos a perfect pick for them to come in and play that right tackle spot after Trent Brown does leave. One of the true tackles that can play tackle in this class, and I just think a really good player. Um, yeah, some of the best tape in this class, just not this year particularly. I think he was better, obviously, in 2024. You see that grade. Came in probably as tackle one, but I think has fallen to tackle two below Maui Noah, who can play right tackle as well. But I think Fano definitely measures better as a true tackle. You maybe just want to get his weight up slightly. Um, but yeah, I think, plug and plays well for the Texans who are about to lose Trent Brown on that right hand side. Moving on though to number 23 with the Dallas Cowboys, who are back up, the second pick of the first round after trading up to number 6 to get Kendrick Falk on the edge. I think you could go a lot of different areas, um, but I say it a lot. I think you do what you can to get Kenneth Murray off the field, and I really like C.J. Allen. I think the athleticism will really help them, and I think it's a really good pick for them. I think that C.J. Allen's a very instinctive linebacker, very athletic linebacker, gonna float to the right gap, unlike Kenneth Murray, who kind of just stands where he is, stands put. Um, but yeah, really good linebacker, probably one of the best in this class, just due to his athleticism. Um, Besides the Ohio State guys, I really like C.J. Allen. I think he could sneak into the first round, if not going to be an early day two pick. Um, but yeah, C.J. Allen to the Cowboys is probably one of the best picks in this draft, in my opinion, just because of who they're replacing. I don't think Logan Wilson particularly stops you from drafting a linebacker, nor does Demarion Overshown, and C.J. Allen also gives you the versatility to um, play with three linebackers that are going to give you a high level of production. So I think it's a great fit for the Cowboys, who need to help that defense, even though they've invested a lot with trades. Moving on though to the Bills at number 24. Um, I don't really know. Maybe go edge rusher here for the Bills, and I think if Cassius Howell's here, it's probably perfect for them. Joey Bosa just hasn't been at that level. I think Cassius Howell is one of the best pass rushers in this class. Not talking about playing three downs to drop or being a three down edge. Sorry, I'm just completely mixing up my words. I don't think Cash Howell is that, but I do think he's going to give you a high level of production and get into the quarterback because that's what he's taught to do. That ghost move that Brian Burns have, Cassius Howell also uses. They're very similar in frame and body type and athleticism. So I think Cassius Howell will be very productive in the NFL, but I don't think he'll be that useful against the run. 12 sacks for Texas A&M this year. Again, plays against Francis Maianoa this week, so see how they do. I expect Texas A&M to win, but I mean, we'll see. It's in A&M, so yeah, I do really expect A&M to win. But again, we'll see. We'll see how Cassius Howell does. We'll see how Mary Noah does. I think it's definitely going to be a fun game to watch multiple times to see how both play. And going to give us a tell because of the competition level of how good they might fare in the draft process. Moving on though to number 25, and I do this a lot, but I just think the Bears need to invest in stopping the run, and I think Caden McDonald really excels in that. You can see the difference in the run defense grade between the pass rush grade. I think the Texans could consider him at 22, with Mario Edwards going down, with who else was Tim Settle going down, also being a free agent. So maybe you see the Texans invest in the D line. I think the Bears invest in the D line as well. Um, and go Caden McDonald, who's going to be that run stopping defender for you at number 25. Moving on to 26 with the Chargers. You could go back to back D lineman if you want to go Christian Miller, who's also very good against the run. Um, been very consistent this year. Um, just, you know, really good D lineman. Georgia always fares well with sending defensive linemen to the NFL, so maybe you take a hit on that. But I think you need to invest in your offensive line, and I think Caden Proctor is going to be the pick for you. Um, you have Slater, you have Joe Alt, and I think if either of them get hurt, Caden Proctor would be able to play tackle for you. But other than that, he's going to be able to play guard for you. Like him to cut down his weight a little bit because 366 is very heavy, but he has athleticism. He has the, you know, physical attributes that really entice you to the potential of him, but just hasn't shown enough on tape, particularly this year. But I think if you're able to develop him, you have one of the best offensive linemen in the league, regardless of what position you want to play him at. So I think that's a great pick there for the Chargers there at number 26. Moving on to 27 with the 49ers, I think, you could go a lot of different areas, but I think if Romello Heights here, I think that's an obvious pick. I think Bosa's coming back from ACL surgery. I think you could use a guy that could get to the quarterback. Makes sense that you're going with the Texas Tech guy. Him and David Bailey are both guys that get to the quarterback at a very high rate. Um, just don't stop the run particularly well. Or at least I don't think they will in college or in the NFL. Sorry, they do in college because they're not playing tackles that have insane arm length, are 6'6" and 80, 90 pounds heavier than them. Um, so maybe you want Romello Heights to bulk up a little bit, but I think same thing with Cassius Howell. His ghost move, as well as just his ability to get to the quarterback with athleticism, is really going to stand out on his tape, and I think a team's going to take a shot at that when they just want a guy that can get to the quarterback, which I think the 49ers desperately need because they've had a lack of that this year. Here at 28 with the Cleveland Browns, I think you're looking offensive line here because you don't know what the futures of Conklin or Teller are, and I think Jennings Dunker could be the pick here. But I think you might want to invest in the interior offensive line, and I think Emmanuel Pregnon is one of the best offensive linemen in this class. I think showed a lot on tape this year to really warrant him being drafted this highly in the first round. I think he could go this early. I think he could go early second round, day two. Uh, if he falls to the Texans uh, at their pick in the second, I would love us to take him at number 40. Hope the Commanders lose some games moving forward, so that pick becomes a lot more valuable. But yeah, Pregnon's been a great player for Oregon this year after transferring from USC. Moving on to 29, though, with the Patriots, I think you can go a lot of different areas, but I think you want someone that can get to the pass rusher, so you're probably annoyed at Romello Height um, headed to San Francisco there at 27. Um, but you look at the edge rushers, LT Overton is going to be able to play three down edge for you. Got to the quarterback more than usual this year, but just hasn't been that great against the run. R. Mason Thomas doesn't really have the frame, but is able to get to the quarterback at a high rate. So you want a Cassius Howell type guy. R. Mason Thomas does that for you. You want you know a guy that can um, be that frame guy for you. Quincy Rhodes does that for you. He also got to the quarterback at a decent rate this year. I think a sneaky pick would be Derek Moore, who's got to the quarterback a lot this year. Also has the frame to play three down edge. Um, and for that reason, I I think Derek Moore can go this high, and that's what I'm gonna do. I think Derek Moore could go in the first round with the tape he showed this year, and I think the Patriots need someone that can rush the passer. So they go with the edge rusher out of Michigan, who had 11 sacks, but is also able to stop the run very well, and has that frame to play three down edge. Um, so yeah, maybe a little bit of a reach, but I like that pick. Um, Moving on to the Seahawks here at number 30. You could go DB if you want. You could go with the Brandon Cisse, who I think is very good. Um, you could go with the AJ Harris, who I watched a little bit because I was used to watching Penn State offense, but I watched a little bit in the last couple days. I really like him against the run, maybe shaky in coverage. Dalen Everett's been quite good against the run for a corner too, kind of a Kamari Lassiter type player for me. Just needs to up it a little bit, I would say, in the pass coverage category. Will Lee, I don't particularly like, but I don't think he's too bad. Um, you have a lot of guys in this class who are all right. I think Jair Hill's not as bad as what that what that grade shows. But definitely has the traits to go a little higher than 229. But I think he'll go back to college. Jermaine Matthews hasn't been bad. Cam Calhoun had a good year for Alabama, in my opinion, even though they don't think so. But I think so, in my opinion. Injured a little bit, got injured twice, I believe. Damani Jackson wasn't that great. I'd rather Cam Calhoun than Damani Jackson, in my opinion. Um, but yeah, I think you could go a lot of different areas here for the 49ers. I like the idea of a Brandon Cisse. I like the idea of a Colton Hood who's really good in coverage, can play that boundary for you, which I think you need. Um, and for that reason, I'm going to go Colton Hood over Brandon Cisse. And then go back to back. I think Brandon Cisse could really help out that Giants defensive back room, which needs help. Um, both of these guys, great corners. I think both particularly decent in coverage. I'd rather Brandon Cisse in the run game. I'd rather Colton Hood in the pass game. It's just a preference of what these teams like. I know that the Seahawks may prefer Brandon Cisse because they're a physical team, like to come down on the run a lot. Um, but you know, maybe you want a guy other than Tariq Woolen that you can replace to play on that boundary, and I think Colton Hood can do that. And then Brendan Cisse, I think, is just an upgrade in that cornerback room, which needs a lot of help. You could consider for the Giants maybe a Jennings Dunker or a Caleb Lomu, who plays left tackle for Utah, and then Jennings Dunker plays right tackle for Iowa, but I think profiles more as a guard in the league. If you're talking about true tackles, again, Blake Miller's there, Xavier Chaplin's there. But, I don't think you do that unless you don't plan to re sign Jermaine Illuminor, which in that case you could go Caleb Lomu, move him over to right tackle, but I think they will. He's been quite good for them this year. Headed over to number 32 with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who moved back with the Denver Broncos. And to close out this draft, I'm going wide receiver. I think Casey Conception can line up in the slot for you, but also be that explosive guy that you want. Um, Denzel Boston can do that same thing, both very explosive wide receivers. But in my opinion, I prefer Casey Conception. Concepcion. I don't, I don't remember the exact pronunciation, but yeah, I really like Concepcion's game. I think an explosive receiver can be that returner that you want. Um, you know, maybe that seems like a high drop rate, but I don't think it's that. Maybe it is that high. I don't know. Um, wonder if it shows it. Yeah, 6 drops. So, a little bit of a high drop rate. But I think he's been great for A&M this year. Um, very explosive receiver, and I think the Steelers could use another wide receiver opposite of DK Metcalf. So that is why Casey Conception is the pick. Um, that's my entire draft. Let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. Do you like what I did with your team or not? Do you like the idea of the Rams moving up to 1? Do you like the idea of the Giants potentially moving back and then moving back up? Do you like the idea of the Cowboys moving up, the Cardinals moving back, the Broncos moving up, the Steelers moving back? Um, yeah, just let me know what y'all think down below. Uh, you know, do y'all agree with the reach picks, such as a Derek Moore or an Avion Terrell or potentially a CJ Allen, if you want to think of it that way? Um, maybe a Colton Hood, but I think Colton Hood's range is around there. Maybe a Pregnon. You know, just let me think. Let me know what y'all think down below in the comments. Thank y'all so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please be sure to like, subscribe, and as always, it's Repulse, and I'm out. Thanks again for watching. Peace.